Hello and welcome to Godot Navigation Lite add-on tutorial. So what does this add-on do? It allows user to change the navigation mesh in real time by adding obstacles, bridges and similar objects which Godot currently lacks. It also allows user to have multiple different navigation meshes for different units in the game. The main feature of this add-on is that it's easy to use, which I will show in practice by changing the default navigation in a project I'm currently working on. So this is my current project and it's using default Godot navigation with navigation node and the navigation mesh. The navigation mesh in default Godot navigation is created from static objects or mesh instances. I'll run the scene with default navigation. In my case, units sometimes don't find the optimal path to the target, which was also my primary motivation for creating the add-on. So let's get back to the add-on. It is written in C++, so performance should not be an issue, and it uses Detour library, which is also used by Unreal Engine and Unity. It currently supports creating navigation meshes from static bodies. So let's install the add-on. You can do so by visiting GitHub page of this add-on, which contains the link to download. Once you downloaded it, open it, and we also want to open your project's root folder, as we want to copy the add-on to your add-ons folder. We can do so by choosing Open in File Manager in your File System tab. You want to copy the Godot Navigation Lite from the add-ons folder to your project's add-ons folder. If you don't have it, just create it. Once it's copied, we have to get back to the project and enable the add-on by selecting Project Settings and choosing Plugins. There you have to change the state to Active. Next, we have to set up our nodes. First, we'll choose the base navigation node and we want to change its type to Detour Navigation. Once it's set, we also want to change the navigation mesh node to the spatial, since we don't need the Godot's navigation mesh functionalities anymore. Now it's time to create our navigation mesh. We choose the Detour navigation node and select Navigation Manager to create navigation mesh. It will create a new node with a lot of properties. We also have to bake it like we do in default Godot navigation mesh. You can see that it recognized the terrain mesh, but it did not recognize trees or buildings, because I have them on second and third bit of collision mask. We have to change the collision mask to include them. And we have to bake it again. Now we have our desired result. Last thing we have to change is replace getSimplePath method with findPath function call. I have it commented here. It is very similar, and we have to call findPath function on the navigation mesh node, provide the start and end position, and select the points array from the result dictionary. Set, and we can start the scene. The navigation mesh is tiled, as you can see, which helps with performance. If you make a change on it, it will update only the affected tiles and not the whole mesh. FindPath function is also working as expected, and the units are successfully avoiding the obstacles. I want to show you some real-time changes. I'll remove a house from the navigation mesh. I'll do so in editor, and it will reflect also in-game. If we switch back, you can see that the obstacle of the house has disappeared. And if I return it back, the changes will automatically reflect on the navigation mesh. So basic navigation mesh allows us to add and remove static bodies to or from the mesh. If you want to toggle navigation mesh visibility, just check it off in the debug menu. So that is basic feature set, but there is more. The add-on also supports cached navigation meshes. They are useful if you need very fast navigation mesh changes by adding obstacles. So I'll make the houses in my case to be in dynamic domain. Dynamic objects will be added much faster, but they will have few restrictions. Only box and cylinder shapes are supported, and they just subtract areas from navigation mesh, so you can't use them for example bridges. They're useful for doors or slowly moving big structures. If I want to create a navigation mesh for vehicles, I can increase the agent radius and have one navigation mesh for infantry and one for vehicles. I'll bake it, and as you can see, the buildings aren't included in the baking process anymore. That's because dynamic obstacles are added during the runtime. The padding around the trees is also wider because we increased the agent's radius. We've also had to change the find path function to use our newly created cached navigation mesh instead of the previous one. To be able to demonstrate the real-time changes, I'll change my building placing logic to manually call the add-cached-collision function. If the static object's collision layer is inside the navigation mesh collision mask, it will be automatically added. But since my static object does not have the right collision layer when it's created and I change it when it's placed, I'll have to manually call it. Okay, so let's start the scene and check how it works. The houses now are set as dynamic obstacles, but it's just for testing purposes. So when I decide to place the building, our manual function gets called and updates the navigation mesh. In majority of cases you don't have to call the manual function, it's only necessary if the added static body does not have the same collision bit set as your navigation mesh. Units are avoiding houses like they should. Since I can't use dynamic obstacles for objects like bridges, I'll set them to be in regular collision domain. First, I'll change the manual call to place the regular collision shape instead of cached, and after that I'll change the collision mask so the buildings are regular collision objects again. I'll change back the agent's parameters, and I also want to increase the maximum climb a bit, since my meshes aren't synced with terrain well. So now we can start the scene and see the results. You should try to have as simple collision shapes as you can if you want good performance. For example, for a house you can add a box for the base and rotate the box for the roof. And you can also add boxes for trees. So basically box shapes are the fastest since they require the least number of polygons. For complex objects, like my bridge for instance, you have no other option but to use convex or concave collision shapes. And in dynamic obstacles option, you can also use cylinders, and they'll be as fast as boxes. For more information, check the GitHub page. You can find documentation there as well as a demo project. If you have any issues, you're welcome to post them on GitHub. The add-on is currently available for Linux and Windows, but it should be released for other platforms as well. If you need advanced features, you can post feature requests, but you should first check out the Godot Detour Addon created by the Sheep with EE on GitHub, as it has some fancy detour features implemented. All the links are in the description. Thank you for watching and goodbye.